Let me ask you something. Who decided the limits you live by? Who told you how far you could go? What was realistic? What was acceptable? Because I'm here to tell you something that can shatter your entire way of thinking. You are not here to follow the rules. You are here to write them. The greatest transformations in life happen the moment you stop waiting for permission. The moment you stop playing by a script someone else wrote for you. The second you stand up and say, this is my life. This is my game. And I make the rules. It's not about arrogance. It's about ownership. It's about shifting your identity from someone who reacts to someone who creates, from someone who obeys limits to someone who sets new standards. Because if you keep acting like a follower, you'll always wait to be noticed, wait to be chosen, wait to be ready. But if you act as if you write the rules, the game changes immediately. Every single belief you hold is like a silent command shaping your life. Whether you know it or not, most people walk around thinking their limits are real, unchangeable, permanent, handed down by someone with more authority, more wisdom, more power. But the truth is every limitation is built on a belief, and every belief is a choice. That's where your entire transformation begins. When you act as if you write the rules, you're not just changing your behavior. You're challenging your beliefs at the root. Because if you believe you're trapped, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you'll stay stuck in an invisible cage. The moment you believe you're free to choose differently, to create differently, to live differently, that's the moment the cage disappears. Think about it. Why do people settle for less than they're capable of? Why do they shrink themselves, tone down their ambition, or back away from opportunities? It's not because they're incapable. It's because they believe they're unworthy, or it's not the right time, or someone else has to choose them first. That belief becomes a boundary. And as long as you honor that boundary as if it's law, your life will never break beyond it. But when you act as if you write the rules, you start giving yourself new instructions. You stop waiting to be told what's allowed, and you start deciding what's possible for you. This is where real freedom begins. Not outside of you, but inside your psychology. You've got to understand something. Rules aren't always posted on walls. The most dangerous rules are the ones whispered in your mind, passed down through generations, or picked up unconsciously from people who were never truly free themselves. Rules like don't stand out, don't aim too high, play it safe, be realistic. You didn't consciously choose those rules, but you're living by them, and you'll keep living by them until you choose to challenge them, until you act as if those rules don't apply to you. Because the truth is, they don't unless you let them. Every breakthrough in history has been made by someone who refused to follow the rules. Someone who said, I don't care what the world says is possible. I'm going to act as if it's already mine. They weren't waiting for perfect conditions. They weren't asking for approval. They decided to live from a place of power, not permission. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to look at the rules you've been living by and ask yourself, who wrote these? Who do they serve? And do they align with the future I'm committed to creating? Let me tell you, belief isn't passive. It's not just something you think, it's something you embody. If you believe you're powerful, you'll speak differently. You'll move differently. You'll walk into rooms with presence. If you believe you're the one who writes the rules, you stop looking for signs and you start sending signals. That's when the world begins to respond to you in a completely different way. Because people treat you the way you show up. If you show up unsure, they'll doubt you. If you show up defeated, they'll ignore you. But if you show up like a force, like someone who owns their space, their voice, their vision, the world will bend to meet that level. And it doesn't mean you'll have no fear. It doesn't mean you'll never doubt yourself. What it means is that your belief is bigger than your fear. You don't wait to feel ready. You act like you're already in control. Because guess what? You are. You always were. The only thing that changed is how you saw yourself. You stopped acting like a pawn in someone else's game and started acting like the one holding the pen. You rewrote the role you were playing. And when you do that, everything around you begins to shift. Start paying attention to the stories you tell yourself every day. Are they empowering you or enslaving you? Are they reminding you of your strength or reinforcing your limits. Every belief you reinforce becomes a rule in your life. So you've got to become the architect of those beliefs. You've got to stand guard at the door of your mind and ask, does this belief move me closer to my highest self or keep me small? And if the answer is small, change it, tear it down. Replace it with something bolder, something more aligned with the version of you who writes the rules. You're not here to live in reaction. You're not here to be a copy of someone else's idea of success. You're here to create something original, something only you can bring to life. That means your rules won't look like everyone else's. Your path won't make sense to people who are still trapped in beliefs you've already broken free from. And that's okay, because when you act as if you write the rules, you give others permission to do the same. You don't just change your life, you become a spark that ignites freedom in others. So decide right now, what belief do you need to destroy today? What boundary have you been calling reality? That's really just a rule you never questioned. Tear it down. Rebuild your inner world and act, speak, move as if you are the rule maker. Because the moment you believe that fully, the world starts playing by your rules. Power is never handed to you. It's not gifted, granted, or awarded. Power is assumed. The people who rise, the people who dominate, the people who influence aren't waiting for someone to validate them. They walk into the room with certainty, with command, with presence, and they act as if they already own it. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. That's what separates those who lead from those who follow. Because the truth is, the world responds to the energy you put out. If you hesitate, if you question yourself, if you wait for approval, you'll be overlooked. But when you move like someone who's already been chosen, who doesn't need a permission slip, people pay attention. The universe pays attention because you've stopped playing small. You've started to embody what power really looks like, unshakable belief in yourself. You have to understand something deep in your core. No one's coming to save you. No one's going to pull you aside and say, hey, it's your turn now. You've earned it. Step into your greatness. That doesn't happen. What happens is you get sick of waiting. You get tired of playing by rules that weren't made for you. And one day you decide you don't need to be told you're enough. You already know. You don't need to be invited to the table. You bring your own table. You don't knock politely on the door. You kick it open and say, I'm here to lead. That decision, that internal shift is the ignition point for everything that follows. Power doesn't show up when you finally make it. Power shows up the second you stop asking and start acting, when you stop doubting and start declaring, when you walk into any situation not wondering if you belong, but knowing that your presence adds value, that your voice carries weight, that you were made for more than just fitting in. When you act as if you write the rules, you stop shrinking. You stop second guessing. You start making decisions with force and purpose. Because deep down, you've stopped living in the shadow of your fears, and you've stepped into the spotlight of your potential. Look at the world around you. The people who have power, real, lasting, influential power, weren't necessarily the most talented or the most qualified, but they believed, they acted like they belonged there before anyone else did. They carried themselves with energy that said, this is mine. And eventually the world caught up with that belief. You've got to understand that people mirror what you reflect. If you carry doubt, they'll doubt you. If you carry certainty, they'll follow you. That's how leaders are born, not by waiting, but by stepping forward while everyone else is hesitating. You can't fake it. You have to feel it in your bones. That sense that you don't need to play by the script, that you can build your own stage and perform your own story, that you don't need to wait until you feel ready. You just decide you are. That shift is magnetic. That shift is transformational. That's what separates someone who influences from someone who obeys. You're not just here to follow directions. You're here to create them. And when you take that seriously, when you own that fully, everything changes. Your posture changes. Your energy shifts. Your results explode. Because power responds to movement, not hesitation. The biggest lie you've ever been told is that you have to earn permission to be powerful. That you need a degree, a certain look, a certain background, a stamp of approval. That's nonsense. Power isn't earned. It's embodied. It's chosen. You decide in a moment to stop operating from fear and start operating from ownership. You stop asking, am I allowed? And start saying, I'm taking command. That's not disrespect. That's leadership. That's courage. That's stepping up while everyone else is still waiting for someone to hand them the green light. And the beautiful thing is this, the moment you act as if you already have the power, the world begins to reflect it. Doors open. People listen. Opportunities rise to meet your new frequency. But none of that happens if you're still waiting to be picked. Pick yourself. Back yourself. Choose yourself again and again until everyone else starts to see what you've already claimed. You weren't born to be invisible. You weren't designed to be silent. There's a voice inside you that's louder than the noise of your doubts. There's a leader in you that's stronger than the fear that's been holding you back. And the only way you'll ever meet that version of yourself is by deciding to stop waiting for someone to say you're enough. You're already enough. You've always been. The power isn't somewhere outside of you. It's already there inside you, waiting for you to wake it up. So stop shrinking for a world that isn't even paying attention. Stop doubting yourself just because others haven't caught up to your vision. Stop waiting for a title, a moment, a sign. A sign. You are the sign. You are the decision. You are the authority. Power is yours when you stop chasing it and start claiming it. When you act as if you write the rules, you begin to create a life where no one else dictates your destiny. And that kind of power, that's the power that changes everything. Most people are living by rules they never consciously chose, standards they inherited, absorbed, or were conditioned to accept without ever questioning if they made sense, if they truly served the life they were born to live. They follow invisible scripts that dictate how high they can climb, how loud they can be, how successful they're allowed to feel. And the sad truth is, these scripts are outdated, written by fear, failure, or other people's limitations. But here's the shift when you act as if you write the rules. You stop living under someone else's script. You stop playing roles that don't fit who you really are. You start rewriting your standards. You stop asking, is this good enough? And you start asking, is this worthy of who I am becoming? The quality of your life will always rise or fall to the level of the standards you live by. If your standard is survival, you'll always just make it through. If your standard is comfort, you'll never feel the fire to grow. But when you raise your standards, when you rewrite the rules, you start creating a life that demands more from you and gives more back. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop negotiating with mediocrity. You look at your relationships, your health, your mindset, your discipline, your drive, and you ask, what does the highest version of me expect here? Not what's normal, not what's safe, but what's required for the life I'm building. People live small because they inherited rules that told them to play small. They were told not to ask for too much, not to want more than what's practical, not to step out too far in case they fail. So they adopted these standards and called them reality. But those standards aren't reality. They're a cage. And the moment you act as if you write the rules, you take the key in your hand, you realize that reality isn't fixed. It's flexible. It bends to the identity of the person who's bold enough to say, I decide what I expect from life, and I will not lower my standards to fit in with the world. I will raise my standards to reshape the world around me. You have to look at the hidden agreements you've made, the silent compromises, the patterns you've repeated just because they felt familiar. And you've got to be honest, brutally honest. Ask yourself, what rules have I been living by that don't reflect my true capacity? What have I accepted as normal that's actually beneath me? What excuses have I masked as just the way things are? Because every time you accept a rule that wasn't meant for you, you shrink a little. You dim your fire. You trade authenticity for approval. But when you act like you write the rules, you become dangerous in the best way. You become the one who no longer fits into a box. You become the one who defines the box. The world responds differently to someone who holds themselves to a higher standard. You become magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're committed, because you're clear, because you walk with the kind of certainty that says, this is who I am. This is what I will accept. This is the level I live at now. And yes, it might make some people uncomfortable. Yes, it might distance you from the old crowd. But guess what? You weren't meant to fit in where small rules exist. You were meant to create a new reality, one where excellence isn't optional, one where greatness is the standard. So take inventory of your life. Look at every area and ask, what rule have I been following here? And does it serve me or limit me? Are you waking up to the same thoughts? Because that's what you've trained your mind to believe. Are you working a job, chasing a goal, staying in a relationship simply because some rule told you that's what you're supposed to do? Forget supposed to. Rewrite it. What are you choosing now? Who are you becoming now? What are the new non-negotiables for the person you're stepping into? When you take ownership of your standards, you stop trying to force results and start attracting them. You start embodying a different frequency. You become the kind of person who doesn't just do different things. You think differently, you believe differently, you expect differently, and your world changes accordingly because your results will never exceed your standards. You can dream big, but if your rules are still rooted in fear and limitation, your actions will shrink to fit those beliefs. But if you raise the rules, if you say, this is the new level and I refuse to go back, everything you do starts to rise to meet that demand. This isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than the version of you that once settled. The version of you that played small because they were afraid of what might happen if they broke the rules. But you're not that person anymore. You've stepped into the role of the rule maker. You've decided that your life deserves standards that stretch you, inspire you, and hold you accountable to the greatness that lives inside of you. And once you've made that decision, there's no going back. You've declared that average is over, that survival is done, that excellence is your new normal. And from this point on, you don't follow the rules, you write them. You don't wait for confidence. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You don't wait for all the stars to align. When you act as if you write the rules, you understand one truth at the core of every transformation: action makes it real. The people who rise, who shift their entire identity, who redefine what's possible in their lives, don't feel ready before they begin. They act their way into readiness. They move with conviction even when there's uncertainty. They lean into the fear. They push through the resistance, and they act from a place of power before they feel powerful. That's what separates the leaders from the followers. That's what separates the ones who dream from the ones who live their dreams. Most people are stuck not because they lack potential, but because they're waiting to feel a certain way before they begin. They think clarity comes before the first step. They think motivation comes before momentum. They think certainty is required before they commit. But life doesn't work that way. The internal fire you're waiting on only gets lit when you move. The switch doesn't flip while you sit in silence wondering if you're enough. It flips the moment you decide to act as if you already are, as if the result is already yours, as if the outcome is inevitable, not because you're arrogant, but because your actions declare it. When you act like a rule maker, your behavior changes first. You walk differently. You speak differently. You show up to life like you belong in every room you enter, like you have something valuable to contribute, like you're not here to take orders, you're here to shape outcomes. That energy changes the way people experience you. It changes the way you experience yourself, because once you act with power, your brain begins to believe in your power. Once you take bold action, your identity begins to catch up with that version of you. That's how the shift happens, not in your thoughts alone, but in your movement. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about action. Confidence comes from taking action. You show yourself what you're made of by doing the hard thing, the uncomfortable thing, the thing that scares the old version of you. Every time you move forward, even with trembling hands or a racing heart, you're building proof that you're capable, that you're someone who follows through, that you don't need to wait for everything to feel perfect. You just need to decide that progress matters more than perfection. That's when momentum builds. That's when belief compounds. And that's when life begins to reflect your new identity back to you. There's a power that comes from moving before you feel ready. It's the power of courage. It's the force that says, I won't be held hostage by hesitation. When you act like the rule maker, you don't need all the answers. You need one thing. Commitment. And commitment is proven not by your words, but by your actions, by what you do when no one is watching, by how you show up when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or uncertain, because the world rewards movement. The universe responds to decisiveness. And when you move first, everything else starts to organize around your intention. Acting like you write the rules isn't about pretending. It's about choosing to embody the energy of your future before it fully manifests. It's about moving from vision, not from fear. Most people let fear dictate their next step, but fear will always keep you small. Fear will always offer you reasons to wait. Fear will always sound logical because fear wants you to survive, not thrive. But when you take action in spite of fear, when you act like the rule maker even when you feel unqualified or underprepared, you create new reference points. You begin to realize that fear wasn't the gate, it was the invitation. And the moment you moved through it, the illusion fell apart. You weren't born to play by the rules of limitation. You weren't designed to sit in the stands watching others take the field. You were made to move, to lead, to take messy action. And the truth is, every time you delay, you reinforce doubt. Every time you hesitate, you strengthen the voice that says, maybe I'm not ready. But when you take action, even small action, you disrupt that cycle. You send a new message to your brain, your body, and your identity. This is who I am now. And that message starts to stick. That message becomes your new reality. If you want to live like a rule maker, you have to stop waiting for permission and start declaring intention through action. Don't say you're confident. Do the thing that builds confidence. Don't say you're committed. Show it by what you execute, by what you follow through on, by how you show up when it's hard. Action is the amplifier. It makes your belief real. It makes your identity real. It makes your future tangible. And once you realize that you stop looking for guarantees, you stop looking for the path to be cleared, you become the one who clears it with every step. So take the leap, make the call, launch the idea, speak the truth, show up to the moment as if your future depends on it, because it does. And understand this the moment you start acting like the rule maker. The rules you once lived by begin to dissolve. The old limits stop holding you. The old doubts lose their grip. Because you're no longer waiting to become something, you're already living it. Action makes it real. And the more you act, the more real it becomes. Until one day you wake up, look around, and realize you're not playing the game anymore. You're creating it. The moment you act as if you write the rules, you stop letting the environment shape you. You start shaping the environment. You stop walking into rooms wondering how to fit in, and you start walking in asking how to shift the energy, how to elevate the standard, how to lead the moment. That's what people who write the rules do. They don't blend into the background. They walk in with intention. They walk in knowing that their presence can change the tone of a meeting, the direction of a conversation, the energy of a space. And that power doesn't come from a title. It doesn't come from status. It comes from identity, from certainty, from a deep, unshakable knowing that you are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't just respond to the temperature, you set it. Most people are walking around as if they're powerless in their environment. They let circumstances dictate their attitude. They let moods shift based on who else is in the room. They let opinions, energy, and chaos shape their responses. But when you act as if you write the rules, you flip that script. You realize that you are not a victim of the atmosphere. You are a creator of atmosphere. You set the emotional tone. You decide how you're going to feel, how you're going to show up, and how you're going to lead. You take command of your emotional state because you know that your inner world determines how you influence the outer one. Think about the people who leave an impact, who you can feel before they even speak. They don't wait for the room to welcome them. They bring the energy that makes the room feel different. That's the result of a person who has taken ownership of their state. That's someone who's chosen to be a leader, not a follower of circumstance. That's someone who's made the decision. I don't adapt to environments. I raise the standard of the environment I'm in. You have to become intentional about the energy you bring into every room. Whether it's a business meeting, a family gathering, a conversation with a stranger, your energy is either lifting the room or draining it. You're either influencing or being influenced. There is no neutral. you are either reinforcing the old story or writing a new one. When you act as if you write the rules, you take that seriously. You stop letting situations dictate who you are. You stop mirroring the lowest energy in the room. You walk in and become the highest vibration in that space. And it's not about pretending to be perfect. It's about leading with purpose, with clarity, with presence. Influence doesn't come from loud words. It comes from alignment. When you are aligned with your vision, your values, and your identity, people can feel it. They trust it and they follow it. Influence begins when you take full responsibility for the energy you project. You start asking yourself powerful questions. What am I radiating right now? What am I modeling in this moment? Am I adding to the room or am I blending into the noise? People who write the rules don't tolerate environments that pull them down. They transform them. They create culture wherever they go, not because they demand attention, but because they command presence. There's a difference between control and influence. Trying to control everything around you is exhausting. It's rooted in fear. But influence is different. Influence is grounded in identity. It's about showing up so consistently and powerfully that the room begins to shift without force, just by the weight of your presence. You become someone others calibrate to, and you earn that by choosing moment by moment to bring your best energy forward, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're tired, even when you're uncertain. Especially then, that's when leaders are made. If you want to live like someone who writes the rules, you have to master your state. You have to own your physiology, your focus, your language. Because how you feel determines how you show up. And how you show up determines how you impact others. If you walk into a room carrying doubt, insecurity, or passive energy, that's what people receive. But if you walk in with certainty, even if it's quiet certainty, with calm strength, with decisive energy, the entire atmosphere changes. People lean in, people listen, people respond. So many people are waiting for someone else to lead, someone else to set the tone, someone else to raise the standard. Be that person. Be the one who initiates the change. Be the one who chooses presence over distraction. Be the one who speaks life into a dead room. You don't need a stage to be a leader. You don't need a spotlight to have influence. You need intention. You need consistency. You need the decision that says, I'm going to leave this room better than I found it every day, every time. You were made to follow the energy of the world. You were made to lead it, to walk into places and shift the story being told, to speak when others are silent, to believe when others are doubting, to bring clarity when others are confused. That's what happens when you live like the rule maker. You stop waiting for permission to lead and start moving like leadership is your natural state. And when you do that consistently, when you claim that kind of presence, people notice. Not because you shouted, but because your energy said everything for you. Own your energy, own your space. Walk into every room as if it's your responsibility to raise the standard, to lift the energy, to shape the outcome. Because when you act like the rule maker, you stop reacting to the world and you start rewriting it. Who you think you are determines everything. It shapes the rules you live by, the risks you're willing to take, the results you expect, and the life you allow yourself to experience. Identity isn't just a label. It's the operating system that controls how you move through the world. And the most powerful shift you can ever make is not in your strategy, not in your goals, not even in your circumstances. It's in your identity. Because the truth is, identity is destiny. If you see yourself as someone who follows, you will always look for direction. If you see yourself as someone who's not ready, you'll always hold back. But the moment you shift your identity to someone who writes the rules, someone who leads, someone who creates the game rather than just playing it, everything changes. Most people never stop to question their identity. They wake up and operate off a story that was written by other people, by past failures, by old limitations. And they wonder why their life feels stuck. It's because their story hasn't changed. Their self-image is still wired to an outdated version of who they were, not who they are becoming. But here's the truth: identity is not fixed. It's chosen. It's built. It's created by the standards you accept, the actions you repeat, and the vision you hold of yourself. And when you act as if you write the rules, you're not just doing something different. You're becoming someone different. You don't become powerful by achieving first. You become powerful by deciding who you are, then acting from that place. That's how the transformation begins. You start with the internal declaration, this is who I am now, not in the future, not one day. Now, you take that identity and you put it on like a new skin. You wear it before it feels comfortable. You embody it before it's been proven. And then you back it up with action, not because the world said you could, because you said so. That's what rule makers do. They don't wait to be told who they are. They decide who they are and then train the world to accept it. You have to stop living from the memory of your past and start living from the vision of your future. The past might have given you limitations, but the future gives you permission to expand. And the only way to fully step into that future is to break the emotional ties you have to the old version of you. The version that was hesitant, that was afraid, that needed approval, that questioned their value. That you is gone the moment you say, I'm not available for that life anymore. And every time you make a choice that aligns with the new you, the old identity loses power. Every time you speak up when you used to stay silent, every time you say no to something that no longer fits, every time you follow through when you used to procrastinate, you're reinforcing a new identity. That's how real confidence is built, not by affirmations alone, but by alignment. By consistently taking action that matches the version of you who leads, who decides, who writes the rules. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you're not just acting like that version, you are that version. And here's the thing, once your identity shifts, your decisions change. Your standards change. You don't tolerate the same excuses. You don't negotiate with your old limits. You stop thinking, can I do this? And start declaring, this is what I do. This is who I am. People will feel it. The world will feel it. Because when you shift identity, your energy follows. Your voice changes. Your posture changes. Your presence becomes undeniable. And that creates influence. That creates opportunity. That creates momentum that can't be faked because it's rooted in the deepest truth of who you are becoming. Don't underestimate how powerful this is. You can change your life in an instant by changing who you believe you are. If you keep identifying as someone who's trying, someone who's figuring it out, someone who's hoping it works, you'll keep experiencing inconsistency. But if you decide right now, I am someone who makes it happen, I am someone who leads, I am someone who shapes my environment and never lowers my standard, everything begins to organize around that identity. Not overnight, but inevitably. You have to own it before it's obvious. You have to live it before it shows up in your results. Because your new reality doesn't come from external validation. It comes from internal conviction. When you act as if you write the rules, you don't ask, is this allowed? You ask, is this aligned with who I am now? You filter every decision, every action, every habit through the lens of your new identity. And that identity becomes the anchor, the compass, the source of your standards, your power, and your future. So decide now, who are you becoming? What does that version of you no longer tolerate? What does that version of you demand from life, from others, from themselves? What rules does that version live by? Write them, speak them, live them. Because once your identity shifts, you'll never see the world the same way again. You'll stop trying to win within someone else's framework and start building your own. And that's the moment you stop playing by the rules and start creating the game.